Zoom goes like,
just in case. Yeah.
It's happened. Okay, I'm ready to go. Ron, here we go. All right, so we'll go in 3, 2, 1. And joining me now from his workplace in Toronto is Sam Brody. Welcome to the CJN Daily.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you here. So Sam, you've had a few days to process your experience. How are you feeling?
I'm still shook up from what happened. Physically, I'm doing okay, but mentally, it's been a struggle. The idea of having to look over my shoulder now when I go out of my house is not a good thing or fun for anyone. So it's been a struggle since then, but the support from the community has been fantastic. So it's great in that regard.
Well, let's talk a bit about what have people been saying, the reaction to your video.
So I've had a lot of response from actually all over the world with it at this point. I've had people reach from Israel, from India, from England, the US reach out to me like, hey, thanking me for taking time to talk about this subject and share my experience, because there are a lot of people out there who don't necessarily want to. But I felt it was important to get my story across. Thank God I haven't experienced any negative from this at all. Nobody's come out and said anything negative or whatever, So I can only say good things from the support I've gotten from people around the world. It's beautiful to see how our community comes together, and people from different walks of life who have also reached out to me talking about how this is horrible what I've experienced, and that nobody should have to live looking over their shoulder in fear just because of who they are.
So I saw on your Facebook post that you had Jamie Gutfriend from CP24 said, "We are all Sam Brody." He's a Jewish television personality in Toronto, in case our listeners don't know. How did that make you feel when you saw that?
Well, to be honest, I'm a pretty not in the public eye sort of person. I'm a pretty big introvert. So this is all very new to me and kind of freaky and scary and exciting in its own way. But to be like called that, like I'm representing, let's say, everyone here in the city as a Jew or across the world as a Jew, like it's an honor. It's really just an honor to be able to carry that title, I guess. I didn't intend to be this person or, be making this statement, but I'm happy to be the one to go out there and do it.
So take us back. I don't need you to relive the whole thing, but were you alone? Tell us where you were going. Is it your usual route? What was the story?
Absolutely. So I was about to walk my dog. We were walking out of my house, taking our usual morning stroll, room to go to the bathroom, etc., before I head to work. And as I'm walking down my block where I live, towards the end of the street, I was looking down, seeing what he was doing, and then I start walking. I see a gentleman coming towards me from the end of the street. A large gentleman, 6 foot, 200 pounds, like a big guy, big solid guy. And as I'm walking towards him and he's walking towards me, just as he passes me, he body checks me into the wooden fence that my dog and I are walking past, and I get knocked to the ground, and he yells like at me, "F you, you Jew, you will never take Israel, free Palestine." At which point I'm on the ground. I'm not going to say anything or whatever, because I don't know if he's carrying something else, or since I'm already on the ground, he could kick me or something like that. So I kind of just hold my dog and kind of crouch to the side, and he kind of jogs off the middle of the street, and I kind of race around the corner away from him. And that was kind of the end of the interaction. And then I kind of took it really slow going home because I didn't want to run into him around the other side of the block or whatever. So, and then I called the police about a half hour later, their non-emergency line, to report what happened. But it was just so out of the blue, and for someone just to assault someone. I've had people throw verbal hate at me before, plenty of times in the city. Unfortunately, I've probably had close to 20 incidents of anti-Semitic verbal attacks in my lifetime. But this is the first true physical assault I've ever had. And with verbal, okay, maybe you throw some words back at them and stuff, but in this case, it's just so scary and shocking, and it shakes your idea of what it means to live in this city. Because like you hear it happen to other people, but when it happens to you, it really does change your perspective. But I just think it's important that I say this because I don't think it's a story that's getting told enough.
Were you wearing anything else like
I have my kippah
tzitzit
on.
or tzitzit katan or any of that stuff?
I just had my kippah on, and I had a Magen David. So he obviously saw my kippah, and clearly that's why he chose to do this. Or obviously.
And how was your dog? Was your dog injured at all?
No, thank God he's doing well. He just was yapping at him, but he's a pretty yappy dog anyway, so didn't exactly draw any attention.
What kind of dog is it? What's the dog's name?
He's Oakley. He's a cockapoo. He's about 18 pounds, so I wasn't going to do a whole lot in that regard, but he was loud and barking, so that helped. Definitely helped. Most people don't want to stick around when there's a barking dog, so I think he helped him move him along.
Did anyone come to your aid?
No, unfortunately not.
Was there anyone around?
I saw some people off in the distance, but like that was like the other end of the block, so I can't really say 100% that they did see something happen and then didn't come and help, or they just didn't see it at all. I don't want to assume for anyone that malice or anything like that. So.
And so you weren't injured yourself personally?
Like my shoulder is still sore and stuff, and like it's not like broken or anything like any long-term sort of thing, but I'm still in pain. But it's mostly the shock and the whole thing that's just scary. It's just we shouldn't have to live like this. We live in a great country, in a great city. We have many great people here from all walks of life. And unfortunately, we have a few bad apples that'll ruin it for everyone else. And it's extremely unfortunate. And it seems like these bad apples are becoming more common or more vocal, or it's just that it seems to be so okay at this point that people are just willing to do this sort of thing.
You were mentioning that, you were really shook up. Did you miss work for a couple of days, or have you changed any of your plans or any of your behavior because of being reluctant to be out?
Yeah, so I missed like a couple of days of work, just from the stress of it and, dealing with police and different community outreach groups and stuff like that. It's been tough. Even when I'm at work, like I'm constantly thinking about it and stuff like that. I do work a second job where I sell life insurance, and like I haven't been able to do that really at all. Like it's a lot of dealing with people one-on-one and talking about their emotional stuff, and it's just I haven't been able to do that. It's just too hard at the moment. I'm not in the right mental headspace for it. Like my wife and I we're planning on Wednesday to buy tickets for tonight's the opener. We really wanted to go. We love the Jays and we'd love to go to these sort of things. And like, we thought it'd be really cool to be at the first game, after they haven't been here for 2 years. But ever since this thing happened, I just don't feel safe necessarily going into a large group like that. I don't know who's going to do something to me or say something to me, or I'm much more cautious leaving my house because I don't know if the guy lives in my neighborhood. It didn't look like a guy from my neighborhood, but that doesn't mean he doesn't live there.
Have you removed your mezuzah, taken off your Star of David, not wear your
my Star of David's now below my shirt. I'm pretty much always wearing a baseball cap. It's different. Like I don't want to feel ashamed. I'm a very proud Jew, and generally I will walk with my Magen David, but it's making me think about it, in ways I've never thought about it before. Like even when I got picked on when I used to go to Eitz Chaim, which is an elementary school here in the city, and we used to take the TTC to and from school. And all the time we would get picked on from other schools. They'd steal our kippahs, they'd cut our tzitzit, they'd tie our tzitzit to like the poles and stuff like that. And this is something I've always grown up with. I worked at Roots at Eaton Center, and I was a kippah wearing retail person, and customers used to say comments to me all the time, I didn't know Jews would work retail. I thought this was below you guys, like all sorts of stuff like that. And so I've dealt with it a lot in my life, but it's the scariest it's been for me in my time living in Toronto.
And probably that was died down a bit. And now because of the current situation, it's a little bit more open season on Jews.
It's definitely a lot more open season on Jews. I was down visiting some friends a couple weeks ago in New York. Like they live in Muncie, New York and stuff. And they talk about like their stabbings and stuff. And you'll never hear it on the news. You'll never hear it anywhere. Like, I don't know if like your listeners remember, but in New York, not this past Hanukkah, but the Hanukkah before, like my friends are calling it the Hanukkah of terror, 8 nights of terror. It's crazy. Like we shouldn't ever have to use like that sort of title for our Jewish holiday.
So you're saying the man was not Muslim. How do you
He
know?
was not Muslim or white. He was wearing a pretty decent sized cross. The
So
reason
he was a black man. You have to say
Yeah.
if he was.
Yeah, he was black. I didn't mention that in the interview. And in my video, like the whole point of the video is to make it very apolitical, because people attacking Jews is not a political issue.
No, but you mentioned Muncie, and there was black on Jew murder. The rabbi was murdered, right? And stabbed.
So I had,
and the
unfortunately,
supermarket.
it seems to be a lot out of that community. My experience happened to be with a black man as well. It's unfortunate. I think there's just a lack of education in those communities.
So what's next for you? You're waiting for the police to bring you some lineup pictures to identify people, or what, video camera, security camera stuff?
Yeah, so as of last night, the police were out canvassing my neighborhood, looking for witnesses, looking for video. I haven't heard from them today. So I'll be contacting them later. Usually I contact them about 3 o'clock every day to hear what progress they've made or whatever, or if there's anything they need from me or additional information. Mostly it's been, support from the community, people reaching out, such as yourselves, like just to explain the story, ask me a little bit about me and what's happening. I mean, I'm not going to be any less Jewish or any less anything because this would happen, but it does make me think a lot more about my own security and moving about and stuff like that.
What does your wife say?
Sorry?
What does your wife say?
She's quite nervous by it, and very much so. She's a Jewish girl who works, if he was willing to do this to a young man walking in the neighborhood, who knows what could happen to a young Jewish girl walking in a neighborhood where somebody feels it's okay to attack somebody else. It's a very scary time. It's I know of plenty of people who tell their kids not to wear their camp shirts on the bus and wear kippot and necklaces and stuff like that. I know people said telling people not to wear the UJ Walk for Israel shirts and stuff like that. It's scary. It's sad. We're telling our children not to dress Jewish. It's crazy. When was the last time it was like this? 70, 80 years ago, we have to go back. It's, there's always been bad anti-Semitism, and in certain places there's been worse anti-Semitism, but I don't think it's ever been this bad with violent anti-Semitic acts, especially. And unfortunately, it's just not a subject that gets covered by mainstream media all that often. We don't really get seen as a minority, like pretty much any other minority group gets recognized.
Is there anything you want our listeners to understand that we haven't covered?
Not really. I just I want people to understand that it's no longer a time to stay quiet on these sort of things. If you have an experience, report it, tell someone. If we keep not reporting these things or not making as big a deal as we should, as let's say other groups do out of when they're attacked, then why should other people stop to listen to us or take the time to notice? If we're not telling our story, nobody's there to listen.
You mentioned you were not a public person. Did you have any encouragement to go public with this, or was this your own idea?
It was my own idea. Before I posted that Facebook video, I went back and forth for about 5-6 hours whether I wanted to do this. I was going to just maybe keep it to the police, report it to B'nai B'rith, but just keep it quiet. But after thinking about it more and more and stuff that my family's been through in the past and Holocaust, anti-Semitic stuff they've experienced since we've come to Canada, I think it's important that we share these stories and put them out there. Even though like I'm someone who suffers from social anxiety and stuff like that. So this is totally outside my realm. And this incident has made my social anxiety a lot worse because, you know, kind of proves all these like negative ideas that you have in your head and everything. So COVID hasn't helped, but this certainly hasn't helped either. And I mean, JS and CS has reached out to offer their services and stuff. And I'd like to get back to a more normal way of living as we head out of COVID and stuff, but it's just something like this makes you rethink and reconsider and all this stuff about how you go about doing your daily routine in life. And it's a shame that like I have to think about not wanting to go to this Jays game and think about not wanting to go out to a bar and stuff like that. Just to see some people that like, we've seen the videos in LA where people are shouting out who's Jewish here and they're beating people up and spitting on them and yelling at them. Like, it's scary. Like, you know, I know we live in a great city with a strong federation, a strong community, but it's still scary. It's just still a scary time to be a Jew, unfortunately, in this city and across this country and across the world.
Understood. Thank you so much for being here on the CJN Daily.
Thank you so much.